Welcome to the Jenna Ellis Show, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Visit legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com.
Hello and welcome to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I am your guest host, Carl Jackson, and I am in for Jenna Ellis. You can find me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show and subscribe to my podcast, The Carl Jackson Show. I'm with Salem Podcast Network, and it's an honor to be with you this evening. And also, I'm so thankful that Jenna Ellis would trust me behind or on her show. So thank you so much, Jenna, for that. Guys, I want to start off by talking about some of these Trump trials and the latest on those. Obviously, you had Michael Cohen that took the stand yesterday, and he was a total disaster. We will get into that. There's been some news on Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA. There's been Trump appealed that case, and they have won that appeal, so that has been granted. So that'll be heard. That case against removing Fani Willis off of the case will be heard. So that's good news. Also, I want to talk about Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, that Congress is voting to hold him in contempt of Congress, and I believe they should, and hopefully they will, simply because he is refusing to release audio and video of Joe Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur, and I understand why he's doing it, but we will get into the details of that. But first, let me start with this Michael Cohen trial. So Michael Cohen, the prosecution, Alvin Bragg, they had a really bad day yesterday, but here's the truth. You had a good day. All right, now, Carl, what do you mean you had a good day? This doesn't involve me. Well, yes, it does. This involves Western civilization, these Trump cases. This involves the rule of law, regardless of how you feel about the former president. And frankly, you guys know that Jenna Ellis is embroiled in the case in Atlanta as well with the Fulton County, with Fani Willis, Fulton County District Attorney. And I believe that I believe that all of that stuff needs to be appealed and heard and overturned, quite frankly, because I do believe that Fani Willis is corrupt. And I believe everything that these prosecutors are doing, I believe that they're working in conjunction with Biden's White House as part of, as Trump has said in the past, as an election interference campaign. I believe that this is part of Biden's strategy to try to beat Trump up with all of these salacious details, with the Stormy Daniels testimony and all of this kind of stuff. And this is a way of distracting everyone from the actual issues that are destroying America, whether that's inflation, crime, open borders, so on, etc. But the reason why I say that what we witnessed this week has been a win for us is because it's been a win for the rule of law. Guys, these hearings are sham hearings. And again, this is, you can take the former president out of it if you don't like him. That's fine. But what you don't want to see is our rule of law run amok. And that is exactly what's been happening. Everything from Alvin Bragg still not bringing up any secondary charge. We still don't know what Trump is being charged with. And then you have this from Breitbart. Trump's defense team on Thursday conducted what they called a brutal cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the prosecution's so-called star witness, after which even establishment media said it was devastating to the case against former President Donald Trump. And Cohen, according to the Daily Beast, there was a dramatic moment when Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, forced Cohen to admit that he wasn't even certain of the details on the alleged conversation with Trump on October 26 of 2016, where Trump supposedly greenlit this hush money deal with adult actress Stormy Daniels. You're talking about a call that lasted about a minute and a half, and Michael Cohen turned out to be Michael Cohen, right? He's not a credible witness. I got to be honest with you. I almost feel bad for the guy because he's already spent time in jail, right? He's already been convicted of, lying in front of Congress. This is a guy that he knows has to be on his P's and Q's, and he was going to look like a total idiot because he had to tell the truth on the stand this time around. Because why? He doesn't want to go back to jail, but at the same time, he has to appease the Biden administration. And make no mistake about it, all of this stuff is done, at least in my opinion, is done in cooperation with the Biden administration. And then you have this news that broke, and let me pull this up, Fani Willis and this case against former President Donald Trump in Fulton County. This thing is falling apart at the seams. Fani Willis is now more than likely the appeals process is going to be heard with her. You guys know that this has been a dirty trial, if you will. She hired Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor in this case. She slept with Nathan Wade, and then you had Judge Scott McAfee after they found out all of the salacious details of that particular case. He says, "Well, listen, here's what we'll do. Fani Willis can stay on the case as long as Nathan Wade goes." And that's exactly what they did. Trump appeals that, and now his appeal is going to be heard. Now, there's no set timeline, but I see this as a victory because this is one less case that he'll have to deal with before the election, including Jack Smith's case regarding Mar-a-Lago in the documents case. And speaking of the documents case, let me go to this. The last thing that I want to speak of in this block. The House Oversight Committee has voted to hold Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. Now, why have they did that? According to Just the News, the committee passed this resolution yesterday to hold AG Merrick Garland basically in contempt of Congress for defying the subpoena that demanded the audio recording of President Joe Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur. So the resolution passed in a 24-20 vote, and now it'll go to the full House for a vote. Now, why is this important? Why is this significant? Listen, guys, and let's be truthful. What the Republicans would like to do is they would like to hear Joe Biden's testimony because we all know that he's senile, but we also know that he's corrupt. And here's what we know. I guarantee you that at some point in time, Merrick Garland told Robert Hur that, you know what? Whatever you find out, you're going to have to kind of be hush-hush on this thing. So I guarantee you, if we were to see audio, we would not only witness or hear a senile Joe Biden that's incapable of running the United States of America, but frankly, we would hear a lot of the corruption that I think this guy was guilty of as vice president and senator. This is Carl Jackson in for Jenna Ellis, and we'll be back in a few. You stay tuned.
Hi friends, Jenna Ellis, host of Jenna Ellis Tonight, and we are experiencing instability at every level. Our government lacks leadership, and Bidenomics has been an utter disaster. The economy is in a fragile state. Inflation has been a constant issue. High interest rates have put significant pressure on the real estate market. There have been major bank failures, and many analysts say a stock market correction is likely overdue. We have global conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, and those have the potential to spread, but gold has soared to record highs even among the tensions. So there are so many reasons that Americans should consider wise investing, and investments in gold and silver, and Legacy Precious Metals is the gold standard. I love Legacy Precious Metals because of their zero hassle, education first approach. They can help you roll your traditional IRA into a gold IRA or ship metals directly to your house. Go to legacypminvestments.com, download the free investor guide, and I have read it. There is so much valuable information there. Friends, now is the time to not roll the dice on your hard-earned money. Find out about the growth potential that is in gold and that gold offers you. Contact Legacy Precious Metals and make sure to tell them that I sent you.
All right, welcome back to Jenna Ellis tonight. I am here now with my guest, Saurabh Sharma. He's here to talk about the latest polls and the Trump trials. He is the president of American Moment. Saurabh, welcome to Jenna Ellis tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's get your take on let's go here. Let's get your take on the polls and the debate. Biden just recently this week surprised, I think, shocked everyone, frankly, and decided to debate Trump. I think in large part due to the polls that he's witnessing in these swing states. What is your take on that?
Yeah, first on the polls, I'll have to say I'm really getting nervous about the way that these polls keep shaking out. Any poll that shows that we're up double digits in swing states, that we barely eked out a victory in 2016 and Biden barely eked out a victory in 2020, it doesn't pass muster that we're going to be winning Minnesota by 10 points or something like that. And so I think that conservatives and Republicans have to be prepared for there to be some sort of systemic polling error going on. And then when it comes to Biden deciding to debate, I think it's the same playbook as last time, which is that, look, we all make jokes about how he's a doddering fool or whatever, but they're able to get him on just enough amphetamines and unicorn blood, whatever combination of things it is, the day before a debate, such that he performs really well. And so expectations are down in the toilet. He'll debate fine. And suddenly it'll seem like, Uncle Joe is just as energized as ever.
Yeah, I think you make listen. I think you make a great point on both counts. Actually, obviously, when it comes to the polls, I know conservatives we get geeked out on the polls, but we made this mistake in 2022, and I definitely want to make sure that we don't make that mistake again. We should never use these polls as or look at these polls in a way in which we're just unmotivated to get out the vote, because Democrats they have a machine, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an important thing to realize about the modern Republican coalition is that there's a lot of voters that have become interested in the Republican Party and they're willing to, in polling, identify as Republican, but our turnout machine is not nearly as sophisticated as theirs. So, someone calls you and you say that you support Trump and that you intend on voting, that does not mean you're going to walk to the polls on election day and actually register your vote. So everyone should stay on their feet, keep vigilance, and honestly, look at the betting markets. The betting markets have President Trump with a 49% chance of winning. I think that's about right. Look at where the smart money is going. Pay a little bit less attention to these polls that make it seem like everything's going to be hunky-dory.
What do you think the Biden administration is seeing as far as polling is concerned? Do you believe that they're convinced that they can eke out a victory against former President Donald Trump? Or what do you think they're seeing? I mean, it seems to me that if he's willing to debate, he's either concerned that he might be losing or that he's losing so much ground he doesn't want to continue to lose ground against the former president, even if the race is tight.
Yeah, reports out of the White House say that they also don't believe this polling is entirely accurate. I don't blame them. 2022 was very instructive for them. They thought they were going to get a blowout, and there was barely a red trickle, if that. There's definitely some narcissism inside the Biden White House. How could possibly anyone oppose our agenda? But I think it is reasonable for them to think that their situation is not nearly as dire as it looks. And they see the debates as an opportunity for only upside. The history of these things is that, let's say Biden does make a gaffe. Well, it'll be another one of 10,000 gaffes that he's made. But let's say he's able to make President Trump trip up, or if he's able to turn in a good performance, they see it as a good amount of upside on their side.
I'm speaking to Saurabh Sharma, president of American Moment. Do you think there's anything to this? Biden wants to get this debate over with, or perhaps those around his circle want to have this debate so early? I mean, there's a lot of restrictions on this debate. Jake Tapper, Dana Bash are hosting the first debate for CNN. Both of them have been Trump bashers, so I suspect that if the debate does occur, it'll be 3 against 1, essentially, or they'll be doing everything they can to try and help Biden. But do you think the DNC would like to see Biden's performance early in case they have to move on? Is that just fantasy?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple reasons why both sides want these debates to be early. The main one is that they want these debates to happen well before early voting begins in the election, which I can understand. I think the Biden people specifically want it because just in case there's some sort of catastrophic error, like this time both of his eyes blow up as opposed to just one of them or something like that, that they can spend 6 weeks, blast out the media in order to undo that damage. Remember, Biden's going to have $2 billion to spend this election cycle, maybe more. Every single television screen, YouTube ad, billboard, and newspaper in America is going to be saturated with pro-Biden messaging, and you're going to get door knockers advocating for him. So they're going to have a lot of firepower to undo any mistakes. So that's part of the reason why I think they want to go early.
Man, that's such a great point. What would you tell President Trump or advise him to be mindful of? We only have a couple of minutes left, so if you can answer this quickly, and I want to get your response to some of these trials. What would you advise President Trump? Because I think he has to be careful of not making Biden an empathetic figure, and considering there's going to be left wingers basically that are hosting these debates.
Yeah, I think that the American people have a soft spot for old people. So going after President Biden's age on television is not necessarily the best thing to do. Show, not tell is the opportunity there. Have the conversation focus on policy, the things that divide President Trump and President Biden on the issues. And Biden will make the argument for his senility by himself. I think that's the biggest advice I'd give him.
I think that's a great point. And just real quickly here, Michael Cohen fell apart on the stand yesterday. Fani Willis, the appeals court, have said they're going to hear Trump's case on appeal. Give us your take on those couple of issues there. We have a minute here.
Look, I'll say this. The Democratic Party has timed this perfectly. They want a steady trickle of lawfare news saturating every newspaper for the rest of the year, and they're going to get that. It's going to feel constant. I think it's going to backfire because I think people are tired of this at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think we're seeing that. I mean, honestly, with Fani Willis, I almost believe that case is over and done with. Jack Smith, I think that's going to go beyond election day, so I think that one's pretty much over, at least for their purposes. So anyway, listen, your last take, 10 seconds here.
President Trump needs to keep doing what he's doing, and every conservative needs to be as vigilant as humanly possible. And this election's winnable, but it's not guaranteed. Don't believe the polls.
Oh, man, I love that. Great advice, Saurabh Sharma. I really appreciate that. Guys, don't believe the polls. Get out and vote. This is Carl Jackson in for Jenna Ellis. We will be back in a few. Stay tuned.
Well, friends, you might have heard that Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of their box stores or shopping channels the way that they used to. They've been part of this cancel culture, so they want to pass along the savings directly to you by having a $25 extravaganza. I love that word, extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one-product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products, some you may not even know about. To get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out their $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows are just $25. MyPillow sandals, also awesome, only $25. Their 6-pack towel sets are $25. And brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, just $25. For the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with the all-new Giza fabric, just $25. And orders over $75 will receive free shipping, too. This amazing offer won't last long. Go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna, or call 800-564-8475 today. That's 800-564-8475, or go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Jenna.
Hello and welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm your guest host again, Carl Jackson, sitting in for Jenna. Guys, I'm honored to have with me Father Frank Pavone, the president of Priests for Life, and we're going to be talking about Harrison Butker, this Kansas City Chiefs kicker who, honestly, Father, I got to tell you, I listened to the young man's speech in its entirety at Benedictine College, his commencement speech. And I got to tell you, just like I think many other conservatives, I shared snippets of his speech online. Then I went back and watched the entire speech, and I'm like, this young man's entire speech could have gone viral. Your response?
Yes, Carl, it deserves to go viral. Now, I know Benedictine College. I know the president. I know it's a place of deep prayer. One of our Priests for Life employees graduated just recently from Benedictine. And so I'm not surprised, first of all, that they invited this man, Harrison, to speak. And that says a lot about the school, because so many of these Catholic schools are inviting woke speakers, pro-abortion speakers. So first of all, congratulations to the college for doing this. And secondly, Harrison's speech, I mean, Carl, he did better than many Catholic priests and bishops do in speaking to Catholic audiences, a message that, it's not just that it conforms to Catholic teaching. Okay, it does. But to me, the more important thing is that it recognizes the signs of the times. It understands the battle that we're in.
Right.
I think, Carl, one of the most important things he said was, hey, guys, it's important that you stop pretending that the things you see around you are normal, because we're living in a world of insanity right now.
Father, I got to tell you, I absolutely loved that line. And honestly, when you listen to the speech in its entirety, and I encourage people to go out there and do it, I made it my podcast earlier this morning, and then I just broke down the speech. I was so impressed by it. But you're right, Father, we're not living, and he's right, we're not living in times of normalcy. But I love the way the speech is broken down where, honestly, he encourages the Catholic Church to be unapologetic. He encourages mothers, wives, women to be unapologetic in their femininity, as well as men to be unapologetic in their masculinity. So I love the way that he broke this thing down. But let's talk about this, Father. I mean, you consider the COVID lockdowns. When he challenged the church, he challenged Joe Biden, obviously, and in his position on abortion, which is why there's no doubt about it that the left is going absolutely insane. He also tackled Pride Month. The guy hit everything. But we're not called to be the church of nice, Father, and that's one of the things that he touched on. It's as if people of faith, and I believe this speech was good for Catholics, Protestants, and Jews. We're not called to be this church of nice, especially in the times that we're living in.
Well, that's right. And, Carl, obviously an argument can be made that there is a legitimate autonomy of church and state. Each has its own role. Each has its own lane. And of course, when someone gives a talk like he did, some people will say, oh, the church is becoming too political. But the problem is that the world of politics is not staying in its lane. It's intruding onto the lane of the church. It's trying to suppress the teachings of the church. The ruling Democrat elite right now, they're not in favor of religious freedom. And so what happens is when the politics is denying fundamental truth and contradicting the values that believers hold, then when the church calls them out, and when a speaker like this at a religious institution calls out people like Biden by name, or at least by clear implication, that's not the church being political. That's the church being the church. That's the Christian being the believer for our times, pushing back against an agenda that is really seeking to destroy the church.
And let's be honest, Father. I mean, if people, let's just be real. I mean, obviously, there's no separation of church and state in the Constitution. But you're right. The church has its role. The government has its role. But the closer that we live a more godly and biblical life, I believe that better societies are. And I believe that's why America is so blessed, because we have this heritage, this Judeo-Christian heritage. Let me touch on this real quick, Father. I want to get your response to this. One of the things that he said, he mentioned a film, a movie, and I forget, the name escapes me, but he basically called out the writer producer, where the last scene of the film is this guy that kind of held on to the cross, if you will. But he mentioned how the gentleman kept his faith private, hidden away, and harmless. We can't be silent today, should we?
There's a saying that there's no such thing as secret discipleship. Either the discipleship will destroy the secrecy, or the secrecy will destroy the discipleship.
Oh,
you do
good.
have a lot of people who will try to say, oh, my faith is personal, it's private. Of course, there's a personal dimension to it. But this is the time for publicly proclaiming the gospel. I mean, Jesus made it clear. If you're a disciple, you're also an apostle. You're a proclaimer of what you believe. It's more important today than ever. It's not just for the spiritual life of America that faith has wrong. It's for the very survival of America herself. I mean, we're in, again, go back to what we said at the beginning. We're at a moment of insanity. And Carl, I've been saying to people, why is it that we can't say a man is a man or a woman is a woman? Maybe it's because for 50 years, we've been saying a baby's not a baby. You deny that baby in the womb, right? It's the same kind of a rejection of basic truth as when you deny gender. We've got to speak clearly. And this commencement speech really is a sign for everybody, like you said, across denominational lines of what we need to be today, public witnesses to the truth.
Father, we have just over a minute left, but I want to get your response to this. I mean, obviously, as an evangelical, I was very disappointed in the church during the COVID lockdowns. Give us your take on the Catholic Church during the COVID lockdowns. Obviously, this young man called out the Catholic Church.
Yes. Of course, there were many dioceses where the bishops were slower in reopening the churches than the governors were at reopening the state. And, in my experience with the Catholic hierarchy, a lot of this comes from cautious attorneys. These dioceses often hire attorneys that, they put a straitjacket on everything, and they're always so concerned about liability. I'm convinced that was behind a lot of the church lockdowns, because we see the same problem when we try to speak to the elections. They want to do anything, they don't want to say anything because it's all legal liability concerns. We got to break out of that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And he mentioned that how so many priests were feared of being sued and disliked. And but now is the time. Listen, Father, we got to go. So I do appreciate your time. But now is the time for us to speak out and be strong. God bless you, Father. Appreciate you.
God bless you.
All right, this is Carl Jackson in for Jenna Ellis, and we'll be back in a very short period of time to tackle more issues.
Hi friends, Jenna Ellis, host of Jenna Ellis Tonight, and we are experiencing instability at every level. Our government lacks leadership, and Bidenomics has been an utter disaster. The economy is in a fragile state. Inflation has been a constant issue. High interest rates have put significant pressure on the real estate market. There have been major bank failures, and many analysts say a stock market correction is likely overdue. We have global conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, and those have the potential to spread, but gold has soared to record highs even among the tensions. So there are so many reasons that Americans should consider wise investing, and investments in gold and silver, and legacy precious metals is the gold standard. I love Legacy Precious Metals because of their zero hassle, education first approach. They can help you roll your traditional IRA into a gold IRA or ship metals directly to your house. Go to legacypminvestments.com, download the free investor guide, and I have read it. There is so much valuable information there. Friends, now is the time to not roll the dice on your hard-earned money. Find out about the growth potential that is in gold and that gold offers you. Contact Legacy Precious Metals and make sure to tell them that I sent you.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. Again, I'm your guest host, Carl Jackson, sitting in for Jenna. Guys, I want to follow up on the interview that we had with Father Frank Pavone here, the founder of Priest for Life. And I just want to expound on our conversation with the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker. Guys, I got to tell you, and I've posted this on my social media, and make sure you check out my podcast today, because what I've done is I've played the entire speech, the speech in its entirety, and you've got to hear it. You got to hear it from get to go, whether you're if you're a Catholic, whether you're a Protestant, whether you are a conservative. This is a speech that I would challenge every single one of you people to hear, or every one of you viewers, to listen to and to watch even. I think it is so important. I think it is so crucial. I think we need people like this, especially young people like this, that are in the fight, in my opinion, to save tradition and honestly to save the church and to save America. And I believe that all of these things go, frankly, hand in hand. We need men of courage. And if you watch a lot of the clips clips that you've seen, even conservatives post, and I've been guilty of it myself, where I posted a couple of the shorter videos on X. But now I've posted the video in its entirety. And again, I encourage you to see it in its entirety, because if you listen to Harrison Butker's speech in its entirety, what you're going to see is a young man that challenges the church, right? That challenges both men and women of the faith. This guy is calling for the Catholic Church to be unapologetic. He's calling for ladies to be unapologetic in their femininity. He's calling for men to be unapologetic in their masculinity. And all of this stuff is so extremely important. It's amazing to me, because what we essentially have in the United States of America is we have all of these religious groups that the left is forming, and we have the truth when it comes to people that believe the Bible, right? Those of us that believe in the Bible, and yet we are too scared to speak out. Meanwhile, the church of the left is marching forward, whether it's on issues of biological sex and gender dysphoria, you name it, all of these cultural Marxist issues when it comes to race. This young man, Harrison Butker, again, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, was actually doxxed by the city of Kansas City, by the city. All right, the city management of Kansas City. And then they reeled it back and they tried to say, oh, listen, we did that in error. There is no way that they did that in error. And as a matter of fact, I think there should be legislation passed where anybody that doxes a person needs to serve mandatory time and pay a mandatory fine. I think that's the only way that you stop some of this nonsense. But this guy has called us to a higher calling. And I got to be honest with you, I was completely convicted after hearing this speech in its entirety. You think about it. Would America be in the place, in the dire straits that it is, where the church, and when I say the church, I do mean I'm an evangelical Christian, but obviously, you had Harrison Butker that was speaking at Benedictine College, and he was speaking to Catholics. But as a Protestant, as Jews, I think we need to be able to stand up for a lot of the things that have gone, crazy in our society. And if we do, I think we would have a better America. I think we would have a greater America, if you will. Could you imagine the COVID lockdowns happening? If Christians, if Catholics had stood up against it? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine our sons and daughters as young as, kindergarten and pre-K being tormented and confused by these adults, these perverted adults that want to convince them that they're a sex other than the sex that they were born as? Biological sex I'm speaking of. I mean, there's so many things that have gone wrong in America that I feel like if the church would stand up, wouldn't go wrong. Even our debt. If you consider that, the Bible tells us that the borrower is slave to the lender. And I mean, everything that we see happening in America, I would argue this, and I know I'm going to offend some people by saying this. I would argue that America wouldn't be on the downslide we're in. I would argue that we wouldn't be in a post-constitutional, that we wouldn't be in a post-Christ or as Harrison said, a post-God culture were it not for a weak church. Guys, we cannot be silent. I love the analogy that this young man used about the movie, and I forget the name of the movie escapes me, but he was appreciative of the president of Benedictine College calling it out, where he admonishes Christians. We should not be private. Our faith should not be private. It should not be hidden away, and it should not be harmless. The Church of Nice has to go bye-bye, because if the Church of Nice continue to exist, what you're going to have is a communist country in the United States of America. So I challenge you, men and women of faith, and even if you just consider yourself a Republican or a conservative, it is going to be Judeo-Christian principles that are going to turn this country around. It's going to be our rich and steeped traditions that are going to turn this country around. And that is why this speech to me was absolutely so important. Again, there would have been no COVID lockdowns, in my opinion, if the church would have stood up. We cannot, as he said, don't mistake charity for cowardice. We cannot be cowards. It isn't the time in American history for people of faith to sit back and just let bygones be bygones. We're called for a purpose. We're supposed to get in our lane. And I so appreciate this young man stepping forward to make that reminding us of that. When he challenged ladies, listen, you don't have to be ashamed if you choose to be a homemaker. Without a husband and without a mother, children would not be born into this society, and civilization would cease to exist. Mothers, you get to train your children at home if you like, but if you go in the workplace and you can still be a good mom. But nonetheless, never mistake your role. As your vital role as being a wife and being a mother. Never mistake that, gentlemen. I look at the challenges that he made for men out there, and he addresses the lie that men aren't necessary in the home and culture. Of course, men are necessary. If there were more men standing up like this young man stood up, if there were more fathers out there teaching their sons how to be men, do you think that our prisons would be as filled as they are? Do you think we would have seen the BLM and the Antifa riots like we saw? We set the tone in culture, and don't let the left tell you otherwise. The left wants you to believe that you're insignificant as men, that the church is insignificant, and you're a bad woman if you're a homemaker. But that is simply not the case. We'll be back with more. This is Carl Jackson in for Jenna Ellis. All right, welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm your guest host, Carl Jackson, sitting in for Jenna. Again, you can follow me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Also, subscribe to my podcast, The Carl Jackson Show. Guys, I'm honored to have this next guest with me. I think you're going to love him. If you've not read his work or heard of him before, I am sure you will after this. His name is Auren Macintyre. He's a columnist for The Blaze, and he's the author of a new book, The Total State: How Liberal Democracies Become Tyrannies. Auren, why don't you real quickly just tell us about your book and why you wrote the book?
Absolutely, Carl. So in 2020, we also saw what happened with the pandemic. We saw that despite the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, tyranny seemed to have come to the United States. And so I went on an intellectual journey to try to figure out why this had happened. And so the total state is really me going through this journey and documenting all these different political theorists who I had not heard about beforehand, but had predicted the way that tyranny would come to the United States by taking over all of the different institutions inside the United States that we rely on so regularly and manipulating the flow of information, censorship, the way that we live our daily lives in order to better control the way that our democracy, our popular sovereignty is used. And so really the total state is me explaining that we're not just facing the deep state, though that is an important part of it. We are facing the total state where this institutional takeover manipulates everything that we see and hear.
Yeah, and it's a very important point. Let me ask you this question. Given what we've seen recently on these college campuses where you have these pro-Hamas, these pro-terrorist rioters, if you will, that literally took over some of the most prestigious college campuses across the country. I look at that. These are going to be leaders. These are going to be leaders in America, America's future leaders, and they completely hate the United States of America. They hate Israel. They're anti-Jewish. What do we need to do to get a hold of that?
Well, like you say, these universities are the training grounds for our future ruling elite, especially these high-tier Ivy League universities where much of this is taking place. And so the terrifying thing is that these are basically just seminaries for progressive liberal thought, and these people are steeped in it. They're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to basically get indoctrinated into this new religion, and they carry that into our government institutions, our boardrooms, and our media centers. And so I think the critical thing is to break the monopoly that the universities have on credentialism and employment in the United States. We need alternatives so that employers and businesses can find other ways to go ahead and validate people's work. And we need to go ahead and get rid of the federal funding and the endowments that allow these left-wing universities to continue to operate without any kind of oversight or any kind of response to the parents who are sending their children to these institutions.
I'm speaking to Auren Macintyre. He is a columnist at The Blaze and also author of the new book, The Total State: How Liberal Democracies Become Tyrannies. Let me ask you this. Auren. Do conservatives, as Christopher Rufo argues, conservatives, we need to take over a lot of these institutions, pay attention to these institutions that we've kind of abandoned or neglected, whether that's academia, frankly, it's even the church. I want to get to. I want to ask you some questions about the church in general. Is that what we need to do, or let me add this question: must America fall to rise again? Have we reached a point of no return?
Well, I greatly respect Christopher Rufo's work. I have talked to him multiple times, and obviously he's the most effective guy we have right now out in the field. And he's really answering the question one way or another: can we actually take over these institutions anymore? I hope that he's correct and we can, but the answer might be no. And if that is the case, what we need to do is to instead build parallel institutions. Hopefully that means that America doesn't have to fall. But it does mean that the institutions that we once relied upon have become so rotted to the core that we need to build alternatives, ones that are under the control of Americans who love this country, who put it first, who care about community, who care about virtue, who care about God. These institutions must be replaced. And that means that we have to start the work of building them now. I know there are many organizations right now that are trying to do this work. I think a lot of this is in embryo at the moment, but it is encouraging and it needs to happen, because if Rufo's efforts do ultimately fail, we need a backup plan. We need another option where we build these parallel institutions that can take over for these failing, rotting institutions when they inevitably come apart.
You know, and I gotta ask you this, Auren, and we spoke about this before. I did a podcast with you recently. I look at these college campuses, and there were some pushback from conservatives that were saying at the time, you know, what we need to do is try our best to influence these institutions, get into these institutions. And I'm looking at these riots across the, on these college campuses, and I'm like, let them burn to the ground. What do I care? I think that'll help us. The quicker they fall, I think the quicker we can rebuild society, or at least compete with the left, because they've done so much damage.
Yeah, the right has this really normal impulse. It's the conservative impulse. It's usually a healthy impulse to get in there and create order and preserve things. But when the institution has become something that's just a factory to create people who hate you, why would you go in there and solve their problems for you? Look, there are two factions in here, but both of them are pretty against the normal middle American conservative. So yeah, you might say one is a little more evil than the other, or you might agree slightly with one more over than the other, but they both hate you. So why are you going to dive on a grenade for these people? They would never do that for you. Let them fight them out. Let them destroy this. What happens? A couple kids can't go to Hate America 101? Oh, no. I mean, come on. What are we worried about here? Just let them fight and, build something better in the meantime.
Honestly, I think watching this stuff has done more for conservatism than we could imagine. We have less than a minute left, but you've written a new article on The Blaze about some of these church burnings in Canada. Short period of time, but fill us in on that.
Yeah, this should be the biggest story in America right now, or really the world. There have been over 80 churches burned in Canada based on a hoax that there were mass graves found at a Catholic boarding school. That turned out to be a complete lie. It was made up. They spent $8 million and 3 years searching. They have found nothing. And in the meantime, Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government has stood by, watched this happen. No American pastors are speaking out about this. This is a terrorist act. This is a hate crime against Christians in the West, not some distant country, but our northern neighbors, and nobody has the courage to say anything about this anti-Christian tyranny, and we need to speak up. This is outrageous.
Well, Auren, you just did, and we certainly appreciate it, and I love this kicker from the Kansas City Chiefs that's speaking out as well. So listen, I appreciate your time. You guys go out and get the book, The Total State: How Liberal Democracies Become Tyrannies. Thank you for your time. Until next time, God bless you.